What's going on, everybody, and welcome to another Angle of Pursuit podcast, your fantasy football, sports betting, and NASCAR home here at fakepigskin.com. I am your host, Kyle Robert. You follow me on Twitter at NotoriousKRO. With me to break down the Week 9 waiver wire, which is we are halfway through the season for most teams. A lot of buys coming up, a lot of buys gone by. Brian, Week 8 was just the worst, like literally the worst. Like I don't know that, like everything we talked about Sunday morning, like when Ben DiNucci has more passing yards than Carson Wentz, Carson Wentz, Jimmy Garoppolo, Derek Carr, Baker Mayfield. Who else should I list of the other names that I said were good options this week that were just terrible options? Kirk Cousins. Yeah. Outperformed all of them. What?
Yeah, exactly, dude. It was like what. So as I was watching the games on Sunday, we kind of alluded to it about the Patrick Mahomes thing. Like everybody was worried that they were just gonna, throttle it down and use the running game, and that's why we were so in on Le'Veon Bell scoring a touchdown. And they ran the ball like 15 total times. They just aired that shit out all day, just destroying that Jets pass defense.
So it sounds like we should play good players and sit bad ones and not overanalyze these stupid matchups.
And the weather really did factor into
the weather. Yeah.
Like Derek Carr and Baker Mayfield's matchup in Cleveland, that was some nasty weather there.
Yeah, and I have a few names that I want to run through to see how we're feeling, a week later, basically. But as we do every week, let's run through our names. Let's run through the options. I'm going to read off a bunch of names and some ownerships. You tell me which guys stand out to you as the most interesting as we dive into the Week 9 waiver wire targets. I'm going to go ahead and turn this part off. And we are going to talk running back, which surprisingly, there's a lot of options. We got Justin Jackson, 56%. We got your boy Zack Moss.
Hell yeah.
54%. Damien Harris, Jordan Wilkins, and then even like Donta Forman and Tony Pollard is more handcuffs. But obviously, of the names that I mentioned, Zack Moss is your favorite. Talk to me about him, because it sure felt like watching that game that it seemed like the coaches trusted him more. They gave him more volume. They gave him work around the goal line, which is most important. So are you buying this going forward, or do you think this is one of those things where, like in LA with the Rams, or like in Indianapolis, which we'll talk about Jordan Wilkins here in a second, here's this thing over here. Now I'm going to pull the rug out and actually give Devin Singletary 20 carries in the next game for no reason.
No, this is a situation where I think both of these guys are definitely rosterable and startable every week as like a flex basis, because they're going to use Devin Singletary in the clear passing situations, as he's a clear cut better receiver out of the backfield, and he fits that role really well. And then conversely, Zack Moss is that short yardage. Like they like him to be able to hold on to the ball, and I think we saw it yesterday where this is the Bills offense that we're probably going to see going forward, where when they're down in the red zone and down by the goal line, instead of using Josh Allen to run the ball and having his horrible fumbling issues reappear, they're going to give the ball to Zack Moss. And I think that this is something that we're going to see fairly often. And especially with this Bills team, they're playing really good football. They're going to be in every game. I think it's going to be pretty much a 50-50 split every game as far as snaps go, and they're both going to be seeing about double-digit touches. And with a quarterback like that, other weapons on the outside, they're going to be able to move the ball. I do like Moss going forward as a every week flex possible RB2 play with touchdown upside.
With injuries and bye weeks and stuff, like that's a good chance. And as much as I hate to admit it, he looks like he might be usable for fantasy. Justin Jackson saw 15 carries in 2 of the last 3 games. Is a guy that I'm interested if he's still floating around your waiver wire. Ditto for Damien Harris, who has 10 plus carries in 3 of 4 games, 2 100-yard games in 4 of his games, and he gets the luxury of facing those terrible Jets. So I think if you need a running back this week especially, would be my favorite option. And then what are we doing with Indianapolis? Like, Jonathan Taylor just not good? Because that's what it seems like to me. I watched a lot of that game, unfortunately. not only do Wilkins end up getting 20 carries to Taylor's 10, but like it felt like Taylor would come in, run into the pile, fall down. Jordan Wilkins would come in, find the gap that the offensive line is creating, and kind of find ways to run, and was incredibly productive. And honestly, Brian, I'm like, maybe I should be going around in my dynasty leagues and seeing if I could buy Marlon Mack on the cheap.
Well, it came out today that Frank Reich pulled a Kyle Shanahan on us and hid the fact that Jonathan Taylor has been dealing with a little bit of an ankle injury that didn't arise during this game. So this is something that he's been dealing with for probably a couple of weeks now, which is probably is the reason why he's seeing less volume. And, I'm still in buy mode on Jonathan Taylor, especially in dynasty leagues. If people are down on him right now because they probably spent, 101, maybe 102 on him, I'm looking to buy because when he's healthy, we saw it his first game against Minnesota where he was just a train bowling over this Minnesota Vikings defense. And I think that's what they want to get to eventually. But right now they're playing it safe with their stud rookie. And I think that's why Jordan Wilkins is seeing the majority of the touches, especially in a game that they were, pretty handily winning.
Yeah, but it's been like this the majority of the season, and literally feels like every time Wilkins has the ball, he's more productive. And I think the stats bear that out. I don't know. I part of me is like, yeah, this could be an ankle injury. Maybe he is a great buy low option if the person who paid for him basically is worried. But I also feel like we might be on Monty Ball 2.0 territory, and outside of really Melvin Gordon, Wisconsin running backs in the NFL have not fared well. So we'll see.
That name brings back nightmares for me.
J.K. Dobbins is absolutely worthwhile if you can still get him. His ownership got too high. Donta Forman is the running back to own behind Derrick Henry, at least as of right now. He looked actually very good in a game where I don't know what Tennessee, that game was so weird, but Derrick Henry has been amazing. And obviously if he's the starter, you don't really want to use anyone behind him, but Foreman looked really solid. The Titans have kind of been looking for that complementary piece all season. And if something happens to Henry, he's worth a look. So if in deeper leagues where none of these guys are available on my waiver wire, Foreman almost certainly is, and is worth your time. And Brian, I don't know if the Cowboys are willing to do it, but Tony Pollard's look great. Ezekiel Elliott looks like me trying to hit the hole.
Man, I said this last night to my wife watching the game. I was like, man, this might be one of those situations where they're just going to have to eat the contract and play the guy who looks better. Tony Pollard looks so much more explosive than Ezekiel Elliott right now. He's just making decisive choices in the hole, hitting the holes, like a premier running back. He's not sitting back there trying to find the space. And Zeke he looks lost right now without his premier offensive line in front of him.
Yeah, what I also would say is running backs have a short shelf life. If your team's bad and they're bad, let Zeke rest, make up an injury. I don't know what you have to do, but Tony Pollard is worth your time in fantasy and could be worth the Cowboys' time. Heading to wide receiver, we got Marvin Jones, who's less than 50% rostered. No Kenny Golladay. We'll see how long he's out. Corey Davis, since returning from his injury, has 10 targets in each of the past 2 games.
Corey Davis, baby, I told you.
Back-to-back touchdown weeks. It took 5 years and the Titans not picking up his contract, but he has Devontae Parkered himself into a future role in the NFL and looks really good. Jalen Reagor, the Eagles are on bye this week, but if you don't have a lot of fab and you could sneak him through, I think he's a great target. And we'll see what's up with the Niners. It sounds like Kittle's out indefinitely. It seems like Jimmy G's out indefinitely. The Niners traded Quan Alexander. So they're in a weird spot. They're in a tough division, and it feels like they're good enough to be a playoff team, but not necessarily a Super Bowl team. And maybe they're not necessarily packing it in, but we'll keep an eye. But Bourne had 10 targets against Seattle, caught 8 of them. It took a while to get there, but then they finally put in my boy Nick Mullins and unlocked the offense. So we'll see what this looks like the next few weeks. But Ayuk is still worthwhile. Kendrick Bourne still worthwhile. Is Corey Davis your favorite option of the names that I just threw out there?
I'm actually going to go with Jalen Reagor, as I think that, no offense to Travis Fulgham, but I really do think that Reagor brings a little bit more to the table for that Philadelphia passing game in terms of his ability to run, the entire route tree, whereas Travis Fulgham seems to be, he's running those nines, he's running those really deep outs and stuff like that. And Reagor immediately stepped into a premier role with Carson Wentz as he went to him multiple times down the field in the end zone. I think that this offense should get better. I mean,
we've gone through week 8 with this nonsense, and maybe Carson Wentz just like he's in this position where he needs help, and if the offensive line is going to be there, I don't know. Speaking of Travis Fulgham, like I think he's an every week play. I don't think there's any reason to sit him. 13, 10, 11, and 7 targets the last 4 weeks, 75 yards or more, touchdowns in 4 of his last 5. I think Reagor's a nice complimentary piece. I don't know what's going on with the tight ends. We'll talk about Dallas Goddard here in a second. But this offense, I can't. As soon as I think I have it figured out, is this reason? The second I realize that I have no idea what's happening.
And talk about a backdoor cover last night with that defensive touchdown, which I don't know how they didn't overturn that or even look at it long enough to overturn it. But
it's fine. And then I thought my boy Danucci was going to get me the backdoor cover. Not so much. So, yeah, yesterday was just like awful. Like my bets were awful. My picks were awful. My DFS lineups awful. So I'm just going to be like a really good cornerback or a really bad cornerback and pretend like the last play didn't happen and go on to the next one, because that's about all I got at this point. At tight end, we got Eric Ebron at 45%, Trey Burton at 22%, who's getting handoffs, has more rushing touchdowns than Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Harrison Bryant at 9%. We'll see what's up with Austin Hooper. It sounds like a David Njoku trade could be in the mix. And Njoku looked lost. Obviously, the wind has made that whole game weird.
And Baker Mayfield is not good.
Yeah, Baker Mayfield's not good because of the wind, but Derek Carr is fine because of the wind. They can't pick and choose. We can't pick and choose. He wasn't good yesterday, but a lot of people weren't good yesterday. And then Ross Dwelley, who will be the fill-in for George Kittle in the interim, is basically available in every league. If you're in need of a tight end, who are you picking up?
If you're in a tight end premium league, like if you're playing in #SFBX, Scott Fishbowl 10, I'm looking at Ross Dwelley, because with George Kittle going to miss a few weeks, this guy's going to step into an every down role for an offense that likes to feature their tight ends down the field deep too. And if you're getting those extra points for first down receptions and such like that, and Nick Mullins is going to have a more familiarity with this guy who plays the second team with Mullins on the second team. So I like Dwelley in situations like that. But in terms of like season long, I would probably be leaning your boy Eric Ebron, just because with Roethlisberger and the return of Mo Alley Cox, it's almost like on a week-to-week basis now with the Colts. We don't know which tight end is going to be the featured guy, because both Mo Alley Cox and what's the old white dude's name?
Oh, Jack Doyle.
Jack Doyle, they saw more targets than Trey Burton throughout the game, and Trey Burton was saved by a rushing touchdown late in the fourth quarter. So there's too many mouths to feed there.
The Colts game was the weirdest, I think, of all the weird things we saw. We saw Nyheim Hines catch 2 touchdowns. Phillip Rivers threw 3 or 4. That game was just bizarre. Eric Ebron has seen 6 targets, 4 targets, 8 targets, 5 targets over the past 4 since their bye. Had 7, 5 before then. So in terms of volume, it's been incredibly consistent, with Deontay Johnson's coming and going, and Claypool, I guess, is back now that Deontay Johnson's hurt. I don't know, but I think if you want consistency in a guy that you can rely on and hope to get a touchdown, I think he is the name that you need to be targeting. If you need somebody this week, maybe it's Dwelley. I don't know. It's tight end is gross, and I'm very happy I took George Kittle or Travis Kelce across the board, because he's been the only option. Well, Mark Andrews and Darren Waller, but even Waller was awful yesterday.
Oh man.
A couple streaming options at quarterback. I'm going back to Derek Carr at the Chargers. Chargers just traded Desmond King to my Tennessee Titans for a 6th rounder. So thank you very much for an elite corner at a discount bargain bin price. And Brian, you like Drew Lock this week against Atlanta.
Yeah, Atlanta's defense has been surprisingly pretty good against the rushing game, which they're sixth in yards against and third. They've faced the third fewest attempts, but I think that's because they're funneling the opposing team's passing because opposing teams know that their passing defense is just absolutely atrocious. So yeah. I think we're going to see that with Denver this week. And we saw Drew Lock look like the guy that I thought we were going to see coming into the season with Cortland Sutton, Noah Fant, and all those big old weapons last game against the Chargers where he threw for 3 touchdowns. He had 1 interception. He looked really good. He was putting the ball in pinpoint places. I think we see that again this week with the Atlanta offense playing at home where they play a lot better. They're going to score. So I do think that this will be a surprising kind of shootout. And I like Drew Lock's, potential here to get another 3 touchdown game.
Yeah. And KJ Hamler becomes somebody that's a little bit interesting. We'll see what Tim Patrick can do. But yeah, if you like Locke this week, looking at some of his pass catchers might not be a bad way to go. Rashad Higgins, are you out on him after 1 week, or are you willing to say, hey, that was a terrible win game? Literally no one caught the ball. Henry Ruggs runs so fast he doesn't even realize he was about to get out of the end zone. He had a touchdown.
He had a touchdown.
Wide open. And he missed by like a fraction of an inch. If he just slows down for a split second, that's a touchdown. And I look like a genius. Fortunately, I look like an idiot. Higgins is somebody that I'm still buying. Carr is somebody I'm still buying. Goddard, somebody I'm still buying. Are you still interested in these guys after 1 week of failing to live up to any sort of expectations?
I'm definitely still buying Derek Carr because I do think the volume is going to be there for the Raiders, and they're not going to be playing in these crappy weather conditions every week. And then Dallas Goddard, we all know what Philadelphia likes to do on offense. They like to feature the tight end very similarly to San Francisco, and I think that that's going to return with another game under their belt. As Goddard returned surprisingly early, as everyone was expecting him to sit out through the bye week. And then Rashad Higgins, he's the one I worry about the most, not because of who his quarterback is, because we all know I don't like Baker Mayfield, but I do think that they like Donovan Peoples-Jones. They like that Kadarius Hodge. Harrison Bryant has become a presence there. Austin Hooper is likely to return this week, and that team is predicated on the running game. And with Nick Chubb's return imminent, I do think we see them get back to a better rushing attack. And I think that that's something that's been missing, as we all expected Kareem Hunt to step in there and be, the every down guy and just take over for this tremendous running game. But he's not the same rusher that Nick Chubb is when it comes to the style of offense that they run. And I think the return of Chubb will be something that they've drastically needed, and they won't have to pass it as much.
Absolutely. So those are our week 9 names. If there's anybody in the preemptive pickup bucket that you think we should be discussing, drop them in the comments below. Brian and I will be back on Thursday to break down the slate from a betting angle. And then obviously every Sunday morning, you can come listen to me make terrible picks, Brian make awesome picks, fade me, follow Brian. You'll be just fine. But
it's okay.
Brian,
the roller coaster is about to take the deep dive for me soon.
I really hope so. And I told you on Sunday morning after Saturday's college football slate, everything was going to go to hell. And sure enough, it did. So for Brian Twining, I'm Kyle Robert, and we'll talk to you guys next time.